To Gold and Black Live, joined by Steve Lavin. Needs no introduction. We got a whole group of people today that need no introduction. But Steve, obviously, I still love it. And our problem with doing an interview with you is we go down the mine shaft. Sometimes have some great memories back in your day. I still see every game that I see when you're on Fox. They show that picture of you and Steven Scheffler pointing out where he's supposed to be. Nobody could ever name that it's Steven Scheffler, who was a Big Ten Player of the Year with Steve Smith, as I recall that year.
1990.
Yeah, welcome to the show. And you are a busy man with your work with Fox and also some NCAA tournament work coming up. But welcome to the show. I know this is, as I always say, the highlight of your media day is working with us.
Yeah, absolutely a pleasure. Always enjoy talking basketball with you, and in particular when it's Big Ten basketball and specifically the Purdue Boilermakers. So pleased with their position as they come down the home stretch and an opportunity to get a high seed and make a deep run in the NCAA tournament and even win a national title, which would be big news through the basketball.
Yes, it would. And this is a really good basketball team. You had the chance to do Rutgers Purdue Sunday remotely, but it had the opportunity to really, you watch Purdue and you watch college basketball extremely closely. You've watched Purdue evolve this year. Every team has hiccups along the way, but this is what do you love about Purdue, and what does Purdue really have to do well in the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten NCAA tournament, to get to where it wants to get to?
Yeah, the things that jump out, balance of size along the front line, the strength, the skill, a balance of an inside-outside attack, a balance of underclassmen contributing as well as the upperclassmen, and their maturity and the seasoning of the upperclassmen gives Purdue an edge when they step in the NCAA tournament. I think Matt Painter doing the best coaching of his career. And as you mentioned, the key is when you have an unfavorable part of the stretch, or you stub your toe, you get upset in a game, it's how you respond. And I like Purdue's response when they've had a tough stretch. And there are no easy games, but there are more favorable and less favorable parts of the schedule. And Purdue has managed to put himself in position to win a Big Ten championship outright and to get a top 2 seed stepping into both the Big Ten Conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. And that's what it's all about, playing well as we, turn the calendar to March here very shortly. You want to be at your best and playing with confidence, and yet also be mentally and physically fresh. As we've seen through the years in Big Ten basketball, sometimes some great teams have gotten upset, not won the national title when they were trending in that direction. And that's where coaches have to be mindful of how they use their team's fuel, both their mental and physical fuel, and burning that efficiently so they're on point for games. That 2-hour window, they can be at their best when their best is needed. You don't want to leave it on the practice floor and shoot arounds and film sessions and weight room and whatnot. You want them playing their best. Now, preparation is important, practice and rehearsal. Being efficient with that time, though, I think is where coaches that have experience like Matt as a player and a coach have a better feel, because they've been through it and they've learned through trial and error. And I like where Purdue is in terms of they're healthy and they're deep and they can wear teams out with the pace they play at. And they're improving defensively. There are games where naturally fans are disappointed. Coach Painter's disappointed with their defensive performance.
Yeah.
But I saw even in the Rutgers game, some real aggressive play in terms of the way they defended on-ball screens and yet collapsed to the post and provided help and resistance at the rim. So I think Matt will continue to make the adjustments, tinker in the lab in terms of defensive strategy and, opposing teams' personnel. Those are, strengths of Matt in terms of his real feel for the game. And so I think this group is hungry after last year's NCAA tournament performance. They're playing with purpose, and they mean business. They want to bring hardware back to West Lafayette, and that means not only conference regular season, Big Ten tournament hardware, and then NCAA championship hardware.
Yeah, I think that is the understatement of the year, at least in terms of the fan base and this team. Are pretty motivated. So you don't subscribe, the Ken Palm of the world, and not blaming Ken, but the fact that the Boilermakers are in the 100s defensively. Matt Painter talked about yesterday in his pre-Michigan State discussion about turnovers have a role. If we meaning Purdue can limit our turnovers, they only had 7 against Rutgers. We look a lot better defensively when we do that. Do you buy the yin and yang there that those two go hand in hand with the way Purdue tries to play?
No doubt. And just across the board, the equivalent of, a football team that doesn't get penalized, doesn't, throw interceptions. And how an offense in football based on, time of possession and efficiency and putting the ball across the goal line goes a long way, to building your defense, because now your defense has better field position. Your defense is fresher because, they've gotten the opportunity to catch their breath and be fresh when they come back on the field. And for Purdue, when they don't turn it over, that doesn't allow teams to get out and transition and get easy baskets on them. And so there's no doubt, being efficient on offense helps set your defense. And whether you play at a fast pace or a slow pace, that's the case. If you go way back to Dick Bennett or Bo Ryan's teams, right? They were so efficient, didn't turn it over, put it through the net. And that is what really set their effective man-to-man defense. And I think, again, Purdue can tinker with, based on personnel, who they can help more off of, and then make adjustments within the game. If someone gets a hot hand, you naturally got to extend and close out and take away airspace and not let a player that's starting to feel it, like a Johnny Davis, continue to knock down shots. And so I really liked, again, against that Rutgers team, a very hot Rutgers team that had beaten 4 top 25 teams in a row, the way Purdue was aggressive with their ball pressure and their help with the screening and also getting off and providing resistance at the rim when necessary, and then scrambling back to shooters. And they really disrupted Rutgers and really never let Rutgers get into a rhythm or a flow.
You look at some of the players around the country, and you've mentioned many of them already today. Jaden Ivy fits in that mold, maybe even Zach Edey and Travion Williams as well. But Ivy is, to me, and every analyst will talk about it this way, I think, as well. He's produced ceiling in a lot of ways. He can take them, the Boilermakers, to the stratosphere in the NCAA tournament. Talk about what you see in him and his improvement. You've watched him all season long. You have to watch him very closely this past Sunday. Struggling shooting the ball. He's 1 out of his last 14 from 3. I get that. But this is a guy with a unique skill set that can carry a team in March if he can get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a rare category when you look at the history of Purdue, right? We go way back to John Wood, 1928 to 32, the Rick Mount years.
Yeah.
He was capable of carrying teams, Joe Barry Carroll in the Final Four run. And, Troy, Todd, and Everett did it collectively, the triplets for Coach Katie. Then Big Dog came along. He was flanked well by Conzo Martin, but Big Dog was a unique talent.
Yeah.
And you had that group too with Hummel, Juwan Johnson, Etwan Moore, kind of another triplet group, Kramer in there as well. But Jaden Ivy is in one of those, situations where this year he could be Big Ten and National Player of the Year. And he's a two-way player. He influences the game with his length, his anticipation, has really almost like a defensive back, physicality to him, kind of the stout game that he brings to the court. And then offensively, he's improved his 3-point shooting, he's improved his decision-making, the way he can maneuver and change the direction, change the speed, the shiftiness of blazing down the court, pushing it down Main Street, really can cover the entire court with 3 dribbles, with those long strides and pushing the ball out in front. Just special. And so you can tell he's got the chip on the shoulder. He's been sharpening the axe since last season, and it shows in his numbers in terms of his improved shooting, but also in the tenacious approach that he's brought to the court this year. And so we'd have to put Carson Edwards in that category as well in terms of special talents that can put a team on its back and carry him. And Carson almost took him to the Final Four if it wasn't for just kind of destiny or fate coming into play, and Virginia through a deflection, ends up moving on to the Final Four, winning the national title. But Carson Edwards was really special as well. There's so many great players through the years, Terry Dissinger as well. So, but no, Jaden Ivy will go down in Purdue lore as one of the greats, one of the all times. And this team is going to go down as one of the great teams in Purdue history. And now they just have to finish it by getting to a Final Four and giving themselves an opportunity to cut down the nets. Because once you get to the Final Four, you've got a shot, obviously.
Yeah, you have a look at this team and you talked about the 42-year hiatus since the Final Four. It's not easy to get there, and you got to have some good fortune along the way. You know that as well as anyone, having been at that level. All right, so some of the teams that you like that you've seen. I mean, and you obviously see them all, but you do have you're on the West Coast. Arizona's really looks good to me. UCLA's showed last year that it could be there. What are in addition to those two, or including those two? What are some of those teams that really that stand out to you? And is there a dark horse out there, somebody that's not being talked about in that kind of 8-team fold that you keep hearing about teams that could get to the Final Four and win the national championship?
Kentucky, if they're healthy, with Ty Washington.
Yeah.
He's been banged up some, but a freshman playmaker, shot maker extraordinaire. And then down low, Oscar Tshiebwe. I mean, the numbers he's putting up are mind-boggling. And he's arguably a national player of the year. Kellen Grady, who can shoot the ball towards the nets from a long distance. So Kentucky has this year what they've lacked in other seasons, shooting. And that opens the floor for the drive and kick game, for taking it to the rim, giving Tshiebwe more time and space to operate. And Coach Cal, no stranger to postseason conditions and taking multiple programs to the NCAA tournament. So he's a jockey, a coach that knows how to close a season and has a gift for working with young talent and bringing them along. And so I think Kentucky, Duke with the possible swan song for Coach K. It's going to be tough to imagine, this Duke team in Coach K's final year in March Madness, not being in the Final Four. Almost a Hollywood script potentially of Coach K winning one as he goes out after a terrific career. And they've got the personnel to do it in terms of young pieces. Wendell Moore is a two-way player. And Paulo, what's his last name? Paulo Banchero. Banchero is, a lottery level talent. Gonzaga deserves to be where they are. They're in the West Coast Conference, who's having a banner year. So it's not like other years. West Coast Conference may get 3 and 4 teams in the NCAA tournament. St. Mary's, very capable. San Francisco having an excellent year. BYU knocking on the door as well, right on the bubble. But Gonzaga, this could be the year they win the national title. Yeah. So Kansas, so you've got, blue bloods, but Arizona, I think even UCLA, when they step in the tournament, they're the only team in the field that has 5 players returning from last year's Final Four. They went first 4 to the Final Four, 5 wins. They're back, and they control tempo, impose their preferred pace on opponents well. They're very tough defensively, and they've got a deeper bench this year. They go 10 deep, 10 capable players. Arizona, what impressed me with them is, they're at the top, near the top all season in field goal percentage defense, holding opponents at 37%. And yet they, score 85 points a game like Purdue does. They're big and rugged along the front line with Tubelis, Koloko, Matherin, and Krisa and Terry are a nice backcourt. And he may be the national coach of the year. He's done, and Tommy Lloyd has been lights out. I think him and Ed Cooley, another dangerous team, Fryer, very capable. So, but Purdue has as much firepower and personnel as any team in the country, and they've got experience. 96% of their scoring returned, and then now they've developed players, so they have a deeper bench than a year ago, and they're just more seasoned. And again, Coach Painter doing some outstanding coaching, and I think that defensive, metrics and those numbers are a scenario that have forced Matt and the staff to kind of think creatively. So I see that as a good thing, as opposed to getting in the tournament and suddenly you're blindsided. They're aware of their deficiencies, and Coach Katie was the best at this, like going to the dentist, figure out where the cavities are. You watch the game film, you do the drill work and practice, and you remedy some of those vulnerabilities. And there's been enough time for Purdue to be aware of the areas and get better in those areas so they can win at the most important time of the year, which is right now. And that's what I think we all expect them to do, including Coach Painter. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love about your work, Steve, is your kid in the candy store approach every time you're on TV, and it's a breath of fresh air. We're going to see you in the NCAA tournament as well, doing some work. It is a labor of love, and it shows when you do it, and that's what makes it extra special. You and I could go on for another 2 hours, talk about Yo Nuts, talk about Sunday night basketball. I was going to compare you to, I'm going to compare you to Jaden Ivy as the two fastest men I ever saw in Mackey Arena's court, but that might be a
long time ago.
That was a long time.
You're aging us. Yeah,
I know, but that's that beats the alternative. I'm glad to be able to do that. So, Steve, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're a very busy person, and we look forward to your work not only on Fox but also in the NCAA tournament. It will be a joy to behold, and who knows, it may be especially. It's all the NCAA tournament by definition this year will be special because you're going to have fans in the stands, and that will be a big deal as well. But have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend. I know it'll be a busy one, and we'll look forward to watching your work and listening to your work as well as this season comes to its high point, as they say. You got to be your best in March, and you're going to be your best in March on the television as well.
Alan, I always enjoy it. And I'll try and get back at some point during the off season. We'll go to Arnie's for a salad and a little pizza. And Triple X for breakfast. Don't be surprised if we don't have both UCLA and Purdue in a Final Four, and Coach Wooden will be smiling down from the heavens above as the Boilermakers and the Bruins battle it out. That would be the ideal if I have the crystal ball and my wish happens.
That would make it 3 for 3 because to Purdue's first two Final Fours, UCLA, of course, put Purdue out in both of them. But I think Boilermaker fans would take that in a second. All right, have a great rest of your day. Want to thank you so much, and we'll be back in segment 3. Talked with Corey Palm on Perfect Warriors, a book on the 1943 Purdue undefeated football team. A great story. Steve Lavin loves sports history. This is an excellent piece. We'll look forward to doing that as well. Have a great one, Steve. Thanks again.
Take care, Alan.